Happy Mushoku Mondays, everybody. Welcome back to yet another Trek the Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation novel series. We are on a journey of 2 lifetimes, part 4, I think. I'm going to lose track at some point. But I greatly appreciate you guys dropping by for the premiere. Hey, chat. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys have a great rest of your Monday after Mushoku Monday. And I greatly appreciate you guys' support, your kind words, all that stuff you guys poured out for me has kept me going through this whole trek, through the entire series, and it has been an absolutely fantastic experience. But yes, as per usual, greatly appreciate everybody's support channel monetarily through Patreon, tips, links, super thanks, memberships. All that stuff means a great deal to me. We had last week with Orsted Cultist with 19 months. We had Rosemouth with a super thank you. And Nicholas coming down there with a membership of 25 months at this point. Thank you. It means a great deal to me that you guys will part with your hard-earned money in order to support us keeping this going, keeping the lights on, and all that stuff. Because unfortunately, I can't have free rent. I don't know why. But yes, anyways, with that all said, let's just dive right into our next segment. I think we have a great set of chapters here. It seems like they're getting shorter at some point. Like they're coming down like one single page stuff. So it's like, this must have been like an excerpt somewhere where somebody just like threw a quick story together. But yes, let's jump into it. Our first one is short story, Luke, Notos Grey Rat's Unnecessary Item. To be honest, Luke is like the most least interesting character for me. Like, I just really don't care for his character. So, like, whatever the chapter for him, like, let's see though. When Luke awoke that morning, a sweet smell greeted him, just like usual. He reached out to the source of that smell to stroke it softly, and his palm touched something a little rough, but warm and pleasant. Good morning, kitten. Sleep well? Oh, good morning, Sir Luke. Did I wake you? Between nonsensical dreams and a beautiful woman bathed in sunlight, I'll take the latter. You're good at this. I only said what I think. One can't be good or bad at that, surely. A woman in her underwear sat in the bed beside Luke. She looked down at him with a shy expression. Only an exceptionally dense person, or a very young child, could have failed to guess what had happened. It was no great mystery. When Luke was off duty, he brought women home, and everyone around him knew about it. Thanks for yesterday. It was good of you. I do as you request, Sir Luke. This woman wasn't a regular acquaintance of his. By chance, she had come across Luke as he was tidying up his room and offered to help. He had half-jokingly invited her to dinner to thank her, and the chemistry had been good, so he had taken her right to bed. Or, to put it another way, he'd given her a free one-night stand. Yeah, see, this is the problem with Luke chapters. It's like, I just really don't... It just amounts to Luke bangs women, and it's sort of similar to the issue that I had a lot with, like, Rudius' stuff. Like, for instance, was it volume 13 or 14? I think it was mostly 13. It's just nothing but Rudius wanting to bang, and it's like, it's just not interesting. Like, I get it. I'm all for it. If I was in Luke's shoes, I'd be banging. But it's just not interesting to read. There's no conflict here. There's nothing interesting. It's just, he's banging. Any person would get, yeah, I guessed it from the title. Actually, Sir Luke, the thing is, I know this is very forward, but I have a request. Luke looked around a little stiffly. People tended to think that he had no standards in who he took to his bed, but in fact, he was exacting in his choice of women. It wasn't a question of the size of their breasts, of course. Rather, he only brought home women he could sleep with without any significant negative consequences. This girl had slipped the selection process. Okay, somewhat interesting. What is it? Until you put your clothes on and leave the room, I'm your lover, my dear. I'll listen to most anything you might want from me. Luke spoke in a honeyed whisper, but privately, he thought, what a pain. Luke Notos Grey Rat was next in line to be the head of the Notos Grey Rats, one of the great noble families of the Asura Kingdom. He sometimes got women who knew his title looking to get something out of his position. If it was money she was after, that would be all right. Luke would wrap up a handful of coins and pass them over with a smile, though if the figure was too high, he might start haggling her down. If, however, she wanted him to marry her, well, he didn't want to think about that. In the Asura Kingdom, it didn't matter if noble girls were virgins or not. But it was different in other countries. One could end up having to take due responsibility. Happily, Luke had succeeded in deliberately avoiding such women, thus far at least. It might actually turn interesting if that's what happens. Probably not. While we were cleaning yesterday, I found this. The woman produced a small box. Luke recognized it. It was his, but he had no recollection of what was inside of it. That box, what was in it? Perfume. Oh, it's going to be the Luke juice. Since this one wasn't first person, I haven't really broke this one down too much. Luke recognized it. It was his. The woman opened the box to reveal a tiny, pretty glass bottle. Knowing you, Sir Luke, you must have bought it as a present for a lady, no? but it was entirely covered in dust, so I wondered if you would give it to me. See, I'm a little curious as to what kind of perfume Osran royalty uses. Oh. Luke remembered the little bottle, why it was hidden in the corner of his room, and why it was covered in dust. In fact, that isn't perfume. So I'm afraid I can't give it to you. It isn't? Then what? Instead, let me take you on a date. I'd love to get you a perfume that really suits you. Oh, mine. He's good at deflecting. That's some good deflection. Does lunchtime tomorrow work? Yes. The woman nodded, blushing. Then, let's put some clothes on and return to our days, shall we? Can't I stay a little longer? My, those puppy dog eyes. Of course you may. Luke kissed her. His thoughts, however, were back in the day that he received the little bottle. It had been before Ariel had set her sights on becoming the monarch. It seemed like every day that she attended some party with Luke and Derek. These used to be for fits. That said, it wasn't that Ariel enthusiastically sought out party invitations. Rather, she was so charismatic that the mere sound of her voice had half the people she spoke to eating out of her hand. And she was beautiful, making it a perfect belle of any ball. As such, she always received invitations from nobles and royalty who wished to add some class to their event. Likely, some of them were angling at marrying Ariel to get close to the royal family. Derek liked to say that they should use these events to collect allies and seek the throne. But back then, that had not been Ariel and the others' plan. For his own part, Luke was less interested in such things than he was in the women. Yeah, refresher back there. Derek was really kind of pushing this stuff. Ariel had no interest in it. Luke was right there alongside Ariel. Hey, you want to talk about the latest kinky things that we did? That was totally Luke, just right beside her. Like, they were inseparable. And Derek's over here just like, please do something for the throne. Please do something for the throne. Luke was good looking by the standards of the Osran Kingdom. He was the top 5% of faces. What Ruiz would have called Tokyo University level face. Okay, I wasn't really aware of that being a thing, but apparently that's a thing. I've never heard that term. This meant that noble girls flocked to him like bugs on a light trap. Luke could pick and choose what he liked, and, as the latest in a long line of womanizers, it was inevitable that he would devote himself to seducing the fairer sex. At the time, however, his father sternly instructed him to select the women he took into bed carefully. Wow, that sounds very familiar to Amaranth. That sounds very familiar to Amaranth. I would assume that's going to be a very common thing. Again, they know that a lot of these women, they're pawn pieces too. Just like the men, the women are pawn pieces too. So much focus on that with Paul Gaiden, the idea that women were kind of essentially fighting over him, and his father got angry for which ones he chose. And a lot of that was because he was literally sleeping with somebody that had a husband already, or at least a fiance already, somebody they were engaged with. But a lot of that is the idea that equally for them, using that to their advantage, taking women to bed for information or power, the women are looking for that too. They don't have a position already assigned to them. They have to marry into a position. They're political pawn pieces. Not all women were young. These are heiresses who had inherited their family estates. That's shocking. That's typically not normal. Ladies who ruled over the households while keeping their husbands on a short lease took control of the family, and all sorts of others who came after Luke. Luke was aware of his own attractiveness, as well as the wiles of women, but he was up against ladies with long years of experience. Making a move on any of them would, without a doubt, end in disaster. Lest he wanted to tear down the Nosos family and lose his position, he was under no circumstances to make advancements on that sort of woman. That was what Paimon told him. Luke found it restrictive. Wow. Okay, we're going to bring her up there. Paimon coming over with what he learned from Amaranth. Little sleazeball. But he knew that Paimon was likely passing along what he had learned through experience. Luke's mother was formidably strict with her husband. In any case, Luke took care to avoid such women. As he continued with his womanizing, parties were the perfect venue to see what was on offer. Again, it's all a big play. It is all a big play. Interesting to see that Paimon is even... again, technically we did see a little bit of that. That Paimon was, at the time, it seemed like he favored Ariel. And then when she did go to actually make her move, Paimon was supporting her. And it wasn't until she went to leave that he cut and run. And again, I don't blame him too much in that situation because he had no clue that she was coming back. Like it was kind of putting with him talking to Luke. He had no choice. His family came first and foremost. The future of his family was at stake. He couldn't just stay loyal to Ariel. He had no clue she would even come back. So I never really kind of blamed him in that whole situation. Might you be, Sir Luke? On that day, it wasn't a woman that approached him, but a man, a young man at that. Luke was adored by women, but men tended to dislike him, which made this an unusual occurrence. I would assume that there would be some guys that would be into Luke. I mean, they kind of implied the idea they kind of tried a lot of stuff up in there. I am honored to make your acquaintance. My name is Cord Reach, head of the House Reach. The House of Reach? Sorry, where are your lands? I wouldn't expect you to know that, my lord. We are nobles of mid-rank, with holdings in countryside of Fatoa. Yep, there. Ari says it right there, Fatoa. The word Fatoa made Luke's guard go up. Fatoa was ruled by the Boris Grey Rats, the great noble family who supported the second prince. Given their poor relationship with the Notos Grey Rats, Luke was not keen to draw their attention. So what does the head of your house want from me? The truth is, my father passed away, and suddenly not too long ago, and so I became the head of my family. But when I went to present myself, I'm afraid I angered the retired lord. Lord Soros, eh? He doesn't hold back when someone rubs him the wrong way. I meant to call him the head of the family as well, but well, I suppose word had reached him that Lord Soros was displeased with me. I wasn't even granted a proper audience. Cord then lowered his voice. If I may be frank, it made me quite uninclined to ally myself with Boris' family as it is now. Aha, Luke thought, suppressing a smile. He wants to shift allegiances, and he's here testing the waters. Cord wanted to leave the Boreas Grey Rats and subordinate his house to the Notos Grey Rats instead. That he had gone out of his way to approach Luke rather than appeal to Paimon directly must mean he thought Luke was easier to persuade. That explained why Lord Soros hated him, though Luke expected that his father would take a liking to him. Paimon would welcome him with open arms. At present, the second princess faction that followed Ariel was facing a full-blown shortage of supporters. Paimon Notos Grey Rat went about doing the legwork to make Ariel queen, so he was already doing it before she... That's interesting. Before Derek's death, before she even had any care to take the throne, Paimon was already supporting her and trying to do the legwork for it. Interesting. I figured she was completely out of it, and it was only Derek trying to push it. And it wasn't until she finally chose that it was like, okay, everything fire up. Interesting. But not only was he a poor politician, Ariel did not want to be monarch. It would have been more of a shock if they were succeeding. They had none of the pieces they needed to seize the throne. What Luke actually said was, the Boris Grey Rats despise you, and now you want us to take you under our wing? If he were welcome from the outset, Luke and his family would lose this sly young man's respect, and if he did not respect them, he might start scheming to betray them from another house next. The Eros Grey Rats, or the Zephyros Grey Rats, for example. Both houses supported the first prince, who saw Ariel as a threat for some reason, despite her not trying to take the throne. I would probably assume, and I think they may have mentioned this, is a lot to do with her charm. The fact that she can grab that room when she walks into it, that's the threat. Plain and simple, that's the threat. She walks in the room, everybody looks at her, threat. He probably wouldn't do anything to her if she continued that way. Still, Luke wished to avoid making more enemies. The second princess's faction will end up clashing with Boreas's. That is, the second princess faction, no? It's only a matter of time, isn't it? Perhaps so. But that time is not now. You see that much, don't you? They both knew it. In other words, the conversation was a farce. In other words, Luke's words held a hidden meaning. He was essentially saying a spoken agreement wasn't enough, and to bring him a token. Incidentally, while he didn't much try to imply it, he was also thinking that if this man had a younger sister, he'd like her too. I thought you'd say so, Sir Luke, and so I brought this. Given your popularity with the fairer sex, I was sure you would like it. The young man produced a small box from his pocket. Opening it revealed an exquisite glass bottle, wrapped in silk and nestled carefully inside. What is this? It's an aphrodisiac produced on my family's land. Luke raised an eyebrow. Do you imagine I'm so hopeless with women that I need something like this? He spoke with genuine annoyance. Women loved Luke. He considered that fact a part of his identity. Now this man meant to slight him by offering him, Luke, an aphrodisiac. Inside he knew it was not the case, but the existence of the aphrodisiac grated on his nerves. What? You think I can't get it up? It's like completely opposite to Rudy as with his ED. He's like, what? You think I can't perform? Huh? You think women don't like me? Huh? Nothing like that. Cord at once grew flustered and tried to smooth things over. Only this aphrodisiac is extremely potent. A single mouthful, and all any woman would be able to think about is a man before her. Indeed, it even works on men. Note, of course. Cord might act as though he had everything under control, but he was a master of an estate in rural Fatoa. After falling out of favor of the Boris Grey Rats, he probably felt like he was running out of options. I'm afraid I'm not interested in men. Oh no, I only mean that if, say, you were to experience difficulty in that area, this would relieve all concern. That is, not that you would ever. Oh, if you were to ever have multiple women at once, it has a fortifying effect that would give you the endurance to last not just a night, but as long as 3 days. Damn! I think it kind of implied that with Rudius. Our aphrodisiacs are far more potent than any we produced in Fatoa. I'm sure it will prove useful to you, Sir Luke. Luke was perfectly capable of satisfying a woman without resorting to such substances. A whole night was nothing, and even if he couldn't hold it out for 3 days, he'd be ready to do it all again after a day's rest. But then Luke's cool came back to him. Setting aside what Cord was saying, there was an ongoing demand for the aphrodisiacs at the Ostrom Palace, which was to say, people would pay for them. Offering this to Luke was Cord's way of communicating that his family was turning a profit through these aphrodisiacs and had cash to spare. He was pinching Luke on the idea that his family would help them out if it came to that. That was all. That's sort of the idea there. If they're able to last for 3 whole days, the idea there would be very enticing to a lot of people with high power. Again, the emphasis here that what they laid out with Asra when Derek was trying to get Ariel to move was that everybody here is drunk off the fact of comfort. They're all comfortable. Nobody's coming after this kingdom, but one day it will. Ariel, you need to be the one that will actually step forward and do change before this place is destroyed as everybody sits around and indulges. Well, if it's true that they're sitting there indulging, pleasure is a great thing to entice people and to make a lot of money with. Bring them food, bring them entertainment, that kind of stuff is cha-ching. Luke had gotten touchy over nothing. Cord had never meant to insult him. Well, if you insist, then I suppose I'll accept. You mean Lord Palmon? Yes, I'll put a word in with him. And with Lady Ariel, of course. Thank you very much. Cord said that, and then left. Luke looked down at the aphrodisiac in his hand for a moment. Then, with a snort, he put it away in his pocket. Later, Luke still had the aphrodisiac. When he fled the Osra Kingdom, he brought it with him, thinking anything easily converted into cash might be useful. With Fatoa destroyed, the manufacturing of the aphrodisiac was destroyed, and the value of the bottles exceeded 100 gold coins. Happily, Luke had not found himself so hard up that he had to sell it, but that might not always be so. Cord's whereabouts were unknown. It was likely that he was dead. If I were to experience difficulty in that area, huh? He mulled over Cord's words, looking at the bottle. Then he thought back on his tryst the previous night. It had been, in a word, incredible. He'd never get tired of sleeping with women. It satisfied him like nothing else. The women also praised Luke's masculinity, so it satisfied his pride too. Luke had never been more than an average swordsman and scholar, so this was the area in which he felt confident. Far from home, menaced by assassins, and never sure what tomorrow might bring, Luke would probably have fallen apart somewhere along the way, without the company of women, if hypothetically such difficulties had inflicted him at this moment, and he had lost the right to enjoy his affairs. Well, Luke would probably fall apart on the spot. I mean, there's one inconsistency I'm already seeing right here, and that's the fact that if I remember correctly, Luke specifically said that or implied that he bought a few of these before he left the Austrian Kingdom. Like he had acquired a few of these before the Phaeton disaster happened, or maybe he bought it like right after. I forget exactly when, but I seem to remember that he had multiples of these. This is implying that he only got one. Then the Fatoa disaster happened, and he's been holding on to it for the sake of selling it. It's fine, but that kind of gives a little bit more credit to Luke giving it to Rudius, honestly. The fact that this is the only one that he had, and he got it through this whole action here, and he was planning on selling it in case they were in difficult times, it's a massive Luke W. I guess in the end, it's a massive Luke W. And again, a lot of that I think was because he wanted to help his friend. Fitz was his friend. He wanted to help Sylphie out. And so he did this for Sylphie, his best friend. But interesting to kind of twist it here in the idea that, yes, initially it is, okay, this whole thing happened, we're having to flee, and we might need this money. And it's going to sell for a lot of money. Keep it in case something bad happens. But it's adding a little bit of an interesting little addition here in the idea of, oh, but I also really like this thing, you know, sleeping with women. And if I ever lost this thing, I would break. This is my outlet. We're constantly being attacked by assassins. I've lost everything. We've had to flee. This is my one joy in my life right now. If I ever lost that manhood, if I couldn't perform, I would fall apart. So it adds another element to it in the idea of, similar to Rudius, similar to the idea of being inflicted with ED, how that removes your manhood from you, how it destroys you as a male. He was willing, again, to give it up to Rudius, despite the fact that this is sort of a thing of like a what-if scenario that I would hate to lose my manhood, and this could possibly restore it, at least for a night. But, and I think it possibly gets into this, it also is Luke not just trying to help out Sylphie, but also understanding how great this experience is that he enjoys indulging in. He relates to Rudius when he finds out that Rudius can't perform. He feels bad for him, wants to help him out with this. Just the thought made him short of breath. He returned the little bottle to its box, trying to calm his pounding heart. If it came to that, would I use it myself? The market value of the aphrodisiac would continue to rise. After all, consumable or not, it was out of production, and there were many people who would dearly like to use it. At present, it was worth several hundred Osran gold coins. In a few years, it could easily be worth 1,000. Whether they sell it or use it, until the time comes, they best keep it safe. Luke tucked the aphrodisiac in its box away at the back of the shelf. Though that probably won't be for a long time yet. He let out a quiet snort of laughter. This episode occurred a mere few days before Rudius made a full recovery from his ED. Again, interesting to sort of, make it out like this was a choice that Luke made not just for Sylphie, but for, again, Rudius. God, that sucks to have that be going on with that guy. I kind of feel bad for him. But I think still most of it was Sylphie. Okay, it wasn't a bad chapter, but again, I get so tired of Luke stuff. So let's move on to short story table talk adventure. I actually got a kick out of breaking this one down. I think this is a fun one. Half a day's journey north of the royal capital of Lot, there was a large village by the name of Usu. It had been built to support the people who worked at the coal mines still further north and had thriving farms and forestry. But a problem was plaguing the village of Usu. Goblins! These goblins had built their nest near the village, which was beginning to suffer as the goblins stole their livestock and young girls. If they have a good forestry industry, I feel the Woodcutters Guild would find a way to handle it. No, the Woodcutters Guild was dealing with a bigger threat. So, they weren't available. Right, yeah, a horde of Treants showed up in the east. That's why Usu sent a request to the capital's Adventure Guild, asking them to please drive off the goblins. The ones who found their request were you guys, who just signed up the Adventure Guild around the same time. Cliff, the warrior. Sylphiette, the sword fighter. Zenoba, the monk. Elise, the thief. And Juliet, the wizard. Juliet, I forgot. You 5 new adventurers form a party on the recommendation of the Adventure Guild and head to the village of Usu. But you've only just met. Let's introduce ourselves and what we can do. Anyone can start. I'll go first then. I'm Elise, and I'm a thief. I'm a demon, and I'm good at lock-picking and scouting. I'm not a very strong fighter, but I can use my bow to attack from a distance. Apart from that, I'm good at cooking and gambling, and my catchphrase is, "That's a jinx." That character sounds familiar somehow. My bow will make me more useful than that monkey-faced individual you might know. Just wait. Will it now? All right, next. I'm Sylphiette, and I'm a sword fighter. I'm a human. I'm good in close combat, and I can swing my sword twice in one attack. What else am I good at? Oh, I love women, and I have 2 beautiful wives. Sylphie, you don't have to base your character on a real person. But Paul is the only sword fighter I know. There are others, aren't there? What about Luke? Luke isn't a sword fighter. Plus, he isn't that different. It took me a second to get that. One, I'm like, what? He's not a sword fighter? He's a swordsman? What? But yeah, he's not that much different than Paul. Just not having 2 husbands. But yes, it also kind of adds to it the idea that there's so many people, like, I think Roxy and I think Sylphie as well. They just had like this idealized vision of Paul and Zenith and Lilia too. Okay, fair enough. All right, next. I'm Cliff, the warrior. I'll tell you now. With me here, goblins will be no trouble. I might not have said, but on the same day that I signed up as an adventurer, I roasted more than 10 goblins. I think I'm the natural choice as party leader. Trust you be good at roleplay, Cliff. What's roleplay? I'm saying you're playing your character well. That said, given everyone knows that you only became an adventurer today, I think they can work out that you're lying about killing those goblins. Just so you know, I really did kill goblins on my first day adventuring. Yes, technically what that is. Huh. Oh, well, seeing as you, Cliff, I expect nothing less. Well, you know. All right, next. Let's learn from Cliff's example and really get into character.
I am Zenoba Sharon. I wish to express my gratitude to you all for indulging my wish to play this game of Master's creation.
I'm actually surprised that he was the one that came forward with it. Again, with the whole, like, chess thing, he just wanted the figures. Zenoba, it's great of you to thank everyone, but could you please play your monk now?
Understood, Master. Ahem. I am the monk, Zenoba. I am skilled in healing and antidotes. In order for my prayers to reach my God, however, it is crucial that I be in a correct mood. If you wish to benefit from my skills, you must make a commensurate offering. Take heed.
You're good at this too, Zenoba. I can imagine steady monks like that really existing.
Back in Sharon, I had the opportunity to see theater, you see. Though this now was an impression of a Millis bishop who used to frequent the Sharon Palace.
Now, Cliff, there's no need to frown like that. There's always people like that in the world, even when they swore themselves to God.
I know that. It grates on me is all.
Right. Lucky last. Can you do it, Julie?
I'm Juliet, the magician. I burn all goblins.
Great job. Love the fighting spirit. You're a wizard, not a magician, but that's all right for now. Anyways, after you introduce yourself, the five of you set off for the village of Usu. You walk at an easy pace for half a day, when in front of you, 3 goblins appear.
What a marvelous goblin figure. Did you make it yourself, Master?
I thought I might as well. You know. Oh, I forgot. These are your figures. I made one for each class.
Whoa, Master.
Zenoba, don't shout. Look, I'll give them to you when the game's over. So, quiet down for now, okay? Anyways, there are 3 goblins in front of you. What do you do? So dorky.
Everyone, assume fighting positions.
Cliff, wait. My jinx says it's best to avoid unnecessary bloodshed.
But we're here to kill goblins, aren't we? Isn't it better to take these ones out while we're here?
Fights that do not pay are best avoided. I burn goblins.
Julie over there. They're all debating if they're going to fight this thing or not. She's over there like, burn it. Fire. She's just so cute.
I burn goblins.
We have 3 that want to go for it, and 2 that think we should avoid the fight.
Then it's decided.
The majority isn't always right, but if it's what our leader wants, I'll follow. That's a jinx. A bunch of hotheads, the lot of you.
In that case, the battle begins. Adventurers, please do your best not to get slaughtered. The person with the highest speed stat goes first. That's you, Sylphie. Okay, roll this dice, please.
Oh gosh, I'm nervous.
It's her first fight since becoming an adventurer. Sword fighter Sylphiette, her knuckles white on the hilt of her sword, faces down the goblins and raises her blade. Some small figurines of Zenoba's were what set all this off. When Rudius went to see him, he was staring at a collection of little figurines and grumbling with a scowl on his face. That was a rare sight. Him looking at figurines like that. He usually wore a creepy smirk. What's up?
Oh, if it isn't you, Master. In truth, I made quite the lucky find with these figurines. Behold.
He showed Rudius a stone figurine, like a miniaturized chess piece. It was made with its center of mass at its feet, so it could stand by itself. They were probably similar to board game pieces in this world, only these were even smaller, and there were more types. The size didn't quite match either. Some of the shapes were like people, and others like monsters. Sometimes there was a few of them the same model. Sometimes they were different. Sometimes there weren't. There were no regularities. What are these?
They were previously used in war meetings. That being said, however, much of these remain enigmatic.
Reese assumed they were used on a large map with visuals for use in battle strategy. It was true, they seemed too non-uniform for a war room. In the first place, with all the figures as small as these, if you put them on a map, people sitting on the edge of the meeting table would struggle to see them.
It's my conjecture these were used for some different purposes. But there's the puzzle. I have no clue whatsoever as to the purpose they may have been.
Then I guess they must be for a game or something.
Oh, very good, Master. What makes you think that?
No reason. When I first saw them, I thought they looked like pieces from a board game I once played. Plus, they were just the right size for people gathered around a dining room table to look at.
That is true, but if they are for some sort of game, it is strange that they be so lacking in uniformity.
Reese wondered if that was strange. Yes, compared to the world in his past life, this world had less variety in entertainment. When it came to game pieces, they were usually round, coin-type things, rather than pieces easily distinguishable like chess. It wasn't standard to use figurines that fit in the palm of your hands. Were these ornaments then? Though, that didn't seem right either. Ornament figurines weren't this bland. Maybe in the past they were used for a really spectacular battle, and they tried to make a lifelike recording of it by reconstructing it using figurines. At Reese's diorama theory, Zenoba looked intrigued. I kind of wonder, I was kind of expecting them to get into this again later on in this chapter, but it doesn't seem like they do. but it does sort of seem to hint at the idea of, yeah, I could see a diorama. Yeah, it could be the idea of somebody sort of, again, dabbling into the theory of another isekai being in this world, essentially making a Dungeons and Dragons type of tabletop RPG, like, tabletop RPG. But I don't know, it doesn't seem like it's going for that direction. I can see diorama, though. I think diorama is probably the best conclusion to come to with all this, just because of the lack of uniformity. It's probably not going to be for a board game, and it seems like there's an emphasis to make them actually unique looking. Which, yes, for Rias coming into this whole picture, yeah, that would be the first thing to come to mind. Man, this looks like something you would see like in a Dungeons & Dragons set or something like that.
Oh, you advance the most fascinating theories, Master. I believe there was an artist who made such things from stone.
Forgetting my theory for a moment, did you ask Lord Body?
But of course, only his lordship did not have any knowledge of these tokens, as they are from before the first great human-demon war. He speculated that Lady Kishirika might know something of them.
I wonder why he doesn't know about something from before the first great human-demon war.
According to ancient text, Lord Batty was born after the war. It follows that he would not know anything from before his birth, I suppose.
Interesting. I don't know that they've ever mentioned the fact that he was not around for the first one. Yes, it lines up the idea that he would eventually, grow up and join the army with Kishirika and eventually go after her. But interesting. Reese wasn't sure how immortal demons were born. I'm actually surprised we haven't got into that yet. I mean, that's like the whole thing with Kishirika. Like, where did she come? Where did she get that title? Where did she get the eyes from? There's like so much information there that's just not really quite got into yet. Probably ODT, if I guess, is a lot of that stuff. But you suppose everyone's shaky on the details of things that happened before their birth. You would assume that Body Gotti would have probably looked into things, but that's so obscure. That'd be like knowing about art before you're born. Unless it's like very well known and always frontline news. Nobody knows. Of course, Rias didn't have a sense of what that was like when it came to things that happened thousands of years ago. But it made sense that you knew about things that you actually experienced in a different way to stuff that you only heard or read about. It's not like you had to go through so much trouble over something like this.
Au contraire. All craft items such as these are deeply imbued with the customs and practices of the time they were crafted. The background is part of what makes it art.
Oh, right. I guess to the whole chess set that they were doing earlier, I guess he already knew the information about it, so it doesn't matter. Rias saw what he was getting at. Like Picasso's Guernica, you appreciated its value because you knew the artist, Picasso, painted it about the war that was going on. People who didn't have that information struggled to see what made it special. When Rias saw it in elementary school, it looked like a bunch of scribbles. That had to be what Zenoba was saying now. You had to genuinely admire his faith that there was value in these things. All the same, I don't know if Kishirika will know what these are.
Oh? Why is that?
The monster pieces are all monster-shaped, but the people all have human characteristics, which makes me think that they were made by a human. And I wouldn't count on the demon world's greatest emperor knowing about human games,
True. If a demon made this, you would expect the people to be demon-shaped. Very good, Master. Insightful as ever.
It's also possible that she doesn't know, of course. But either way, it's not like we can go ask her. True. For all they knew, in the distant past, the world was ruled by monster-like creatures. And one of them made these figurines. My gosh, we're getting wild now, Rudius. The theories are going a little bit too far. Ring it back, Rudius. Ring it back a little bit. But if that were true, surely Kishirika would have been more monsterific. All the same, Rudius had seen games that used pieces like this before in his past life. Back then, he didn't know anyone, so he couldn't actually play them. But out of interest, he read through the rulebooks. Now that the opportunity presented himself, he thought that he could try to make one. Zenoba, the original purpose of these pieces was probably something else, but... And so it was that 5 rookie adventurers made their debut in the house, playing Rudius's home-brewed tabletop RPG. I would totally do this. In a world like Mushoku Tensei, where you don't really have, like, internet, computers, TVs, entertainment, all that kind of stuff, streaming, going back, like, pre-technology, Dungeons & Dragons would be, like, my go-to. Dungeons & Dragons would be my go-to. Like, I had a lot of fun playing it with my brothers, long time ago with some friends. It takes a lot of patience, but it's a really fun thing to do together with people. You just have to have a group of people that are patient and actually get into it. There's a lot of problems with finding people that are actually, like, devoted to it and actually do want to put in the effort. Because if anybody's not invested, it falls apart so freaking fast, it's not funny. The 5 of them had placed the figurines that he'd made of them of Earth magic on the map that he had drawn by hand. Now they were discussing their options. A nest will have at least 30 goblins, Emily said.
Considering how hard we just struggled with just 3, it's too dangerous to charge in without a plan. But at least, after our last battle, we leveled up, right?
Cliff countered.
We learned new skills. If we have a go, it should work out.
Sylvie considered.
What if we just sealed off the entrance with magic?
Zenobia turned to Julie.
Well, Julie, could you do it?
I'm supposed to burn goblins. I'm supposed to burn goblins. Why did I burn the goblins? Stone cannon. Grandmaster taught me.
Julie, you're a rookie adventurer here, so you can't cast magic strong enough to collapse a cave. This was Rudius' first time playing a tabletop RPG too. Despite studying a rulebook, that was his past life, so he'd never had a chance to play. After all, he had no friends. Oh, is it trying to get in here with a little bit of like sad story? The fact that Rudius never got to do this before, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna finally do this with everybody. Because of that, he was really feeling this out as he went. But it was going well for now. Well, I mean, there's 2 aspects here. One's the fact of playing it, for the first time ever. 2, the fact that he's never led a campaign before, which leading a campaign's very, very difficult. And 3, the fact that he had, by all accounts, fabricated all the rules and all the calculations and everything, because there's a lot of calculations in tabletop RPGs. Like, I'm guessing he made a full-on map out of, like, again, technically each attack, ability, percentage attacks, the enemy types and their deflection and their dodging capabilities and all that kind of stuff, the counter calculations and whatnot. Like, that's a lot. That's a lot. Because of that, he was really feeling this out as he went. But it was going well for now. The rookie adventurers had struggled a bit against the 3 goblins that they had met on the road, but they beat them in the end, and all of them leveled up together. Man, if they leveled up that quick, the XP must be very generous. The XP must be really generous. Now they were outside the cave where the goblins lived, and it was strategy time. They talked about smoking them out, poisoning the food, but personally, Rudius wanted them to go in. That is totally a dungeon master mindset. Totally a dungeon master mindset. No, they're supposed to go in there. Go in there.
You mustn't underestimate goblins, Ellenlise went on. They're classed as monsters in Millis, but they're clever enough that some theorize that they're another sort of demon in ancient times. On top of that, they can see in the dark. Caves are their territory. I know they say hunting goblins is the best way for newbies to test their strength, but eliminating a goblin nest or a settlement makes this quest a B rank or higher. As soon as we knew it was a nest, we should have returned and lodged a complaint with the guild.
Damn, Elise. It's like you have this map out. You have like Zenobia. He's like, oh, here we go, master. These look so great. Cliff's over here like taking it super seriously. Elise, come on, let's go. And then over here, Julie's like, I burnt goblins. And Elise is over here going, actually, this should be a B rank quest. There's no way a bunch of rookie adventurers would be signed a good job like this. We must lodge complaint with the guild. There would nothing like this would ever happen. Chill, Elise. It's just a game. Chill. No, actually, props to Elise. You must always take Dungeons and Dragons seriously. I catching myself from earlier. You take it seriously. Elise didn't seem like she wanted to go in at all. She kept finding a fault. As an experienced adventurer, she probably didn't want to let new adventurers make an obvious mistake. Aw, she's trying to take care of the rookies. Reese's lack of research was at fault. He carelessly assumed that you had new adventurers fight goblins. He hadn't known that destroying a nest was a different thing. Yeah, you should have been treants. It's supposed to be treants as a starting. Reese wondered what to do. The goblins can't see in the dark, and they were weaker. So he could persuade them that it'd be fine, but that felt too inelegant.
Master Cliff, we need not listen to the whimpering of spineless cowards. Earlier, I learned the spell Torchlight. With that to light the cave, we can exterminate those filthy goblins together.
Oh, I think I have to go too,
Sylvie said gruffly.
I want to hurry up and take care of those goblins, so I can make it back to carousing in company with beautiful women. I burn all goblins.
Julie.
I burn all goblins.
The other 3 were on board, and Elise gave Rudius a troubled look, as if to say, you're an A-rank venture, aren't you? Say something to them. He decided to give her something to set her mind at ease. While you were all talking, Elise, the thief, discovered the remains of a massive amount of blood, as well as bodies in nearby bushes. From the color and the smell, Elise can tell that there was a battle a few days ago earlier, and that many goblins are dead.
Rudius,
Elise said slowly,
aren't I just assuming the situation that works out best for us?
The goblins are definitely dead, and as a result, there are that many fewer goblins in the cave, for certain. Rudius was hinting at her that what she was worried about wouldn't happen, that they should enter. He stared at her, praying it got through. She met his eyes for a few seconds. Then her mouth opened in realization. She gave him an apologetic smile. Elise, chill. It's okay.
Then I suppose there's nothing for it. But if any of you die, I ain't taking your bodies back home, okay? And that is a jinx.
It is technically a true jinx. It is technically a true jinx. She understood that it was just a make-believe game, not an adventure simulation. She was always so level-headed, but perhaps, this being her first time playing, she hadn't got the point. But Ruiz was starting as a game master too. But if she can cut him some slack, he'd take it. It's a balance. It's an absolute balance. Like I said, when you're doing a D&D campaign, you have some people that just doesn't seem like they care. And again, they can totally ruin a game. If you have somebody that just doesn't want to be there, they're not taking it seriously. They're just messing around. But it's also true on the other side when somebody gets way too serious. It's like, oh gosh, it's not that complicated. Please, can we move on? No, you do not have to explain every detail of your movements. It's a balance. A happy balance. All right, let's go. With Cliff in the lead, the party headed into the cave.
Now I shall reveal to thee the light of God. Torchlight.
Zenoba was fully immersed in roleplay. Rias hadn't known he was the sort of guy, but then his glaze was fixed on the figurines. It's like the figure's alive. The monk figure Rudius made him must really look like a corrupt priest he had met before. Thanks to Zenoba, the group had a light source. With Elise as a lookout, they poured into the depths of the scary cave.
There are enemies ahead. These seem to be asleep. But they'll notice us if we go any further. What do we do?
We curse them, of course. Now they shall at last behold God in all of his majesty.
Wait, look here. These footprints on the map are bigger than the goblin tracks. There might be a monster stronger than the goblins about. There was a hole in the wall along the way, right? Wouldn't it be better to investigate that first? There are footprints around the same size as the ones at the entrance this way. That might be the goblins.
Whenever there was a whiff of an enemy, Cliff and Zenoba proposed rushing without thinking, while Sylphie and Elise urged caution. Sylphie was exceptionally perceptive and good at assessing a situation, so she had a high success rate in drawing the correct answer from the info she had. She must have developed that ability as Ariel's bodyguard. I'm just surprised that Rurius has literally gone so far as to put the detail of like the size of the goblin tracks on the map, and she's reading that stuff off of there. I'm like, okay, how small are these figurines and how big is the map? Rurius went all in.
Come to think of it, the villagers said there might be Terminator boars living near the goblin's nest. Oh, you're right, which means that might have been what killed the goblins at the cave mouth. When you look closely, there are signs of a cave-in around here. Maybe by chance, the Terminator boar's nest and the goblins got linked up.
The adventurers arrived at the correct answer. Using the information they had, the same thing was written in the notebook on the ground ahead of them. So it was a shame. But oh well, at least they could verify their answer. It's like, okay, figure it out before I even got to the point where you're supposed to figure it out. That's another thing that this entire Mushoku Monday, or at least this chapter, is going to turn to me like talking about my D&D experience. There's another thing that, especially as a D&D game master, is the idea that you sort of formulate the route. They should go this direction. You might, if you spend enough time, you might develop like multiple routes they could end up going into that you could technically hint at them making a choice, which is really great. I mean, if you can get to the point where you are literally creating a multi-choice, multi-path type of thing, that's phenomenal. Like creating literally branching paths that can go into like 15 different destinations. But even like a single destination kind of thing here, and you're building into it, and you have like that point in which you're supposed to kind of play it out by A, B, C, D, E, and then they'll suddenly just kind of go straight to E. And you feel like all this other stuff that you've developed is completely wasted. It's like you're literally, it's like you're flipping through the pages of the book. Okay, they've reached page 3. Good. Okay, they're doing page 3. Page 59. All these pages are wasted. All these pages are wasted. I've had that experience. That said, this is a party of adventurers who barely defeated a group of the same number of goblins. Could they defeat a Terminator boar that had tore up a dozen of them? When he thought about like that, the side route that Sylphie discovered was the right one.
Right. Then let's take down the Terminator boar while we're at it.
They are pests. 'Tis the duty of royalty, of those who serve God, to keep villagers safe.
Yes, a Terminator boar alone shouldn't pose any great threat. It sounds a bit dangerous, but I suppose we'll be all right. With all of us, I'm on board.
Roos began to wonder if he should have prepared a stronger enemy. He thought a Terminator boar would be too dangerous for rookie adventurers, but veteran Elise and Sylphie seemed to see things differently. He wanted to respect his adventurer's wishes. He would change things up a bit. I'm surprised it says veterans Sylphie. I mean, yes, technically she one-shotted one, but she's not like that knowledgeable. I would assume that she acknowledges the fact that she fell on the thing and got pretty damn lucky with the hit. No doubt, if she was in front of that thing back then and it charged her, she would not have that same luck. But Ellie's kind of seeing this differently. I think she's just playing into it now, going, okay, Rudius, you told me before not to overthink things. Let's do it. Like, she's not saying no anymore because you've literally told her chill out. He wanted to respect the adventurer's wishes. He would change things up a bit.
It's asleep. Lucky us.
When the adventurers reached the Terminator boar, the beast was snoring quietly.
Behold, the path continues behind it. Okay, then let's have Julie attack before it notices. If we impede its movements with magic, we'll have the advantage after it wakes up too.
His wife was full of clever ideas.
Okay, Grandmaster, give me power. Quagmire.
That spell wasn't on the skill list. but Rudius had taught her as a combination magic. He let her have this one. It just confused her if he said that she couldn't do it.
But Grandmaster, you told me how to do it the other day.
No, but you don't have the skill in your skill list. You have to. You remember the spell slot thing I was talking about? You can't use that spell right now.
Quagmire.
Interesting, out of nowhere, she's talking about teaching her Quagmire, though.
Right. We all attacked together.
With this order from Cliff, the battle began.
That was tougher than expected. Huh.
Quagmire had restricted the Terminator boar's movement, but it had quickly gotten free and came charging at the adventurers.
Honestly, there's no way a Terminator boar would be as powerful as that. Might have been a mutation. I've heard even amongst the same species of monsters, you sometimes get some, especially big and strong.
We ought to have better ascertained the situation in advance. Proper observation would surely have revealed something obvious.
Zenobia had clever things to say now, but he also had charged in before anyone else.
Leroy Jenkins.
Resupposed roleplay and someone's real thoughts are two different things.
What should we do now?
Sylphie wondered.
Given we used up all of our wound salve, and Julie and Zenobia don't have much mana left, should we head home for now? If we do that, the goblins might move their nest. We'd end up failing the quest. But that's not worth our lives, is it?
Perhaps the fight with the boar had cooled off Cliff a bit. After being eager to go, now he was backing off. No, that's not right. He was back to his usual calculating self. As a note, Rias hadn't thought much about what would happen if they returned mid-quest. So if possible, he wanted them to go further in. Damn it, I don't have I don't have dialogue if they go back. We can go in further before we decide.
That's true. In adventures, after you defeat a powerful enemy, there's always a treasure waiting.
Cliff suddenly was cheerful. Smirking, Rudius led them deeper in the cave.
Excellent. My puppets.
The game master's powers. There, they found a treasure chest. Further back, there was an elevated area, below which 7 goblins and a hobgoblin snored. They can get in a surprise attack, but taking down all the enemies was a tall order.
Treasure!
Cliff tried to run forward, but only held him back so that he couldn't activate the trap on the chest. Inside, they found several wound salves and a one-handed hammer. It was a magic item that afflicted creatures with paralysis, rendering them immobilized. Paralysis was particularly effective against beast-type monsters, and it worked against goblins too, of course.
At last, some excellent loot. We may fail at this quest, but selling this, we can make up for that, and then some.
In this world, useful magic items were sold for extremely high prices. The money that you made clearing out the goblin's nest couldn't begin to compare.
I don't like to throw in a quest, but it seems like really, clearing out Goblin's Nest is a job for adventurers of slightly higher skill. So maybe if we report there was a nest, it won't be counted against us. If the goblins move their nest before our attack, that should give the village some time for the next attack. So I feel like we should leave off here.
Sylphie, it seemed, had thought this far ahead. When planning the scenario, Rudius had not thought that far ahead. But if they did go home for now, that was probably what he'd do. They would fail the quest, though. He's like, scribble it down over here on a piece of paper. That's a good idea. In case they do that, I'll do that.
Wait a minute.
Elise noticed something. Perhaps it was gut feeling born from years of adventuring. Or maybe it was that, when it came to using magic items, she had been doing it a bit longer than others. Okay, either way, It was because she was a veteran adventurer. He's like, oh wait, that's the same thing, pretty much. Sort of.
With this, we could finish off the rest of the goblins, couldn't we? It's not impossible, Lise. But wait, hang on. Huh? You're right, that'd work.
Cliff was a clever one. He'd picked up on the tidy formulas and turn orders that the Bowels had followed so far. He'd seen that if Zonova paralyzed one of the goblins each turn, they could wipe out the rest. He could do the math. That's scary, actually. I could totally see that. I love how there is a sense in here that Refugion's sort of trying to interweave the personalities of each of the characters into this D&D match. He's doing a really good job right here of envisioning if I was sitting in my room right now playing D&D and Ellen suddenly walked in the door and Cliff walked in here, Zenobia came, and they all came in here and sat down. This is exactly what each of them would sort of kind of pick out of this. Ellen would be way too overly serious about this. Sylphie would notice the minute details that needed to pick up. Julie would just sit there and want to burn goblins. Zenobia, being that he's a massive geek about these figurines, would be geeking out and taking it overly serious what in front of him, this beautiful creation by Master, needs to come to life. He looks at it, it's so perfect, it literally looks alive. Cliff, I could totally see him being the one that he doesn't even have to see your cheat card for your stats, for your monsters and everything, and he would probably figure it out. Because that's sort of one of those annoying things that I always found with like monsters and whatnot is that, I mean, depending on how you play it, you didn't know the monster stats. You didn't. There was times where suddenly something stupid happened or we defeated the boss and we're like, no way that thing take that long to kill. And you go, here's the stats. Here's exactly why it was so difficult to kill. Like it was all that information was on that cheat card. Cliff can be the one that just based on like all these calculations of attacks and rolls and everything, he probably would figure out things. He would do the math. I know that's a lot more complicated, but I see him basically being the one to walk into a casino and count the cards. Just not really trying. He would just end up counting the cards. Smart dude. Right, let's go. The rookie adventurers headed into their final battle. Cutting to the end, Zenobia died.
Master.
Why does Zenobia always die in every situation? I knew at the moment they cut to the end, if somebody was going to die, it was going to be Zenobia because Refugian has faked him out so many times. They held the advantage for the whole fight. Zenobia paralyzed one enemy after another, and Sylphie or Julie would finish them off. Once the number of enemies dwindled, Zenobia charged valiantly at the hobgoblin, shaking off the others' attempts to hold him back. In a show of wild courage, he got into a fistfight with a hobgoblin without so much as healing, and so he lost his precious life. As a note, paralysis didn't affect the hobgoblin. That's because it was a boss. Yep, Rudius knows JRPGs very well. Bosses are never affected by status effects. So stupid.
I ask that you give my body to the waves.
I will not. The Mill's faith does not do funerals like that.
Master, don't die. Poor Julie. Poor Julie. She's a wizard and he's a monk, but she's still like, Master, no. Apparently the monk is the wizard's master. So dorky. As a note, there was no permadeath in this game. They dragged the KO'd Zenobia back to town. Then they had the local church do a resurrection. A few minutes later, they returned to find Zenobia alive and kicking. The trade-off was the cost of it was about 1/5 of their payout for the quest. In other words, Zenobia lost his cut. That was the penalty for being an idiot. Still, the extra they got from the Terminator boar, even after penalty, earned them more than they thought. So, they didn't seem that down about it. Mission complete. Congratulations. Declaring this, the 5 of them broke out in smiles. If you ask me, in the end, there was nothing to it, really. Oh, Rudius, if we're adventurers, we'd definitely go out for a drink at the tavern after this.
Then, let's go to the tavern, shall we?
Drinks are on me.
While the others grew more and more cheerful, Julie murmured, Master died.
Oh, that's right. Zenobia. I really wasn't sure how I felt about that.
Master Sophiette, as the blood of royalty, there are times when I must display my valor. If Queen Ariel had been in my place, I'm sure she would have done the same thing.
She definitely would not have.
Oh gosh. And I would have fought first before she had the chance.
Royalty must sacrifice ourselves sometimes.
Queen Ariel wouldn't do that.
Queen Ariel would not display her valor at all. Julie's comment set off a post-mortem of the session. Master died. This went well. That was terrible. If they really done that there, what would happen if a flood of questions came Rudius's way too? So he answered them thoroughly. Only as he was answering, he could see that there was some rough spots in the game scenario and the game systems that stood out. He was only copying what he read in a rulebook long ago, so that was to be expected. Still, seeing how many areas he might have caught in advance did make him feel a bit frustrated. Zenoba looked at Rudius suddenly.
Master,
What?
this game was mighty entertaining. Thank you so much for putting it together.
It was full of rough spots, and he had thoughts on how it had gone. But when Zenoba had said that, he was glad that he had made it. That's such a sweet ending to it. That's such a sweet ending to it. It's really sweet because right here, yes, he's going, yeah, listening to them talk about it and pointing out the mistakes and whatnot. He's starting to see the flaws in the systems that he's created for it. They put all this stuff together, but there's still some rough spots. And he's feeling kind of bad about it. Like, I probably could have done better. And Rudius being Rudius, he's going to sit there and beat himself up endlessly. But then Zenoba turns to him and says, "Thank you, Master. That was a lot of fun. That was mightily fun. It makes it all worth it. It makes it all worth it in the end. And especially if you know how much freaking crap goes in these damn games." And again, like I said earlier, it's not just that Rudius put together a scenario. That's easy. That's not easy, but that's like a, depending on how advanced you make. What Rudius made here, this is probably like a few days. When you have spare time over the course of a few days, you can easily put together a scenario like that. Maybe a couple hours at most. But Rudius had to put together, again, all the mob stats, all the skills, all the classes, all their calculations for each of their abilities, spell slots, and all that kind of stuff for each one of them, leveling, experience calculations, all that stuff they had to put together. He probably had to make like pretty much an entire D&D like version he put together, which, yes, goes back to that whole statement I've made before on the idea of like how much it seems that Refugin gives Rudius almost like a photographic memory of his previous life, because I've played tons and tons of D&D scenarios. I've game mastered plenty of them. I've looked through those books front to back. I've made countless characters of different classes and jobs and whatnot. And I would struggle. And this is like literally last time I played it, not but like 6 years ago, 5 maybe. I couldn't tell you what's in all those damn books and all those stats and everything. That'd take forever to put together. But Rudius put it together. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. It's not just the figurines that Zenoba sees. That's a lot of work. Anyways, there's a cute little story. I just like seeing Julie go, "I'm gonna burn with fire. I'm gonna burn with fire." Short story, something Cliff wants. This is a stupid story. First-rate adventurers are able to instantly pick up on danger creeping up on them and evade it. Rudius had since retired. Given that he was particularly successful as an A rank, he'd say that he's qualified as first-rate. Dude, you got carried. Rudius, stop. You got carried, dude. Rijerd and Edis carried you, boy. I mean, he did a lot of work on his own, but yeah. Just then, his first-rate sixth senses were telling him that someone was out to get him. Specifically, out to get his virtue. "I'm not after anything." Annalise was beside him, looking like a pantheress in heat. But she was lying. "All right, why are you rubbing up against me then? Hey, please don't put your hand on my knee. Stop stroking." He sensed danger. She was after his body. Now, usually, he's a hard-boiled sort of guy who had no trouble of jumping into danger. But this was a little tricky right now. "Hey, Rudius, I actually want you to do something for me." "Absolutely not. Go ask Cliff. That's what you mean, isn't it? More to the point, you know I can't actually do that right now." "No, today's not about that. I have a normal request." Normal? Annalise has a normal request for once. He wondered if a normal request led to her putting her hand on a guy's knee and stroking his leg. But then, this is Annalise, so he couldn't roll it out. "All right, what's the request then?" "Oh, well, actually, it was a simple story. Cliff's birthday was coming up soon. He wasn't actually turning 15 this year, but apparently he had spent his actual 15th birthday alone and lonely." Yeah, I think I mentioned that when they first introduced Cliff at the university. The fact that he was so secluded, didn't really get along with people, didn't have friends, and yeah, he had his 15th birthday and he was alone the whole time. Annalise found out about it and now was hyped to throw his proper celebration this year. The idea that she had arrived to was to get him in a good mood and give him a present, then carry him off to the bedroom. It's always that destination, no matter what it is, and then we'll go there. "And so, I was wondering if you could subtly find out what Cliff might like. couldn't you just do that yourself? You're really good at that sort of thing, aren't you?
Oh, Rudius, you don't understand, do you? If I ask Cliff, Cliff will work out what's going on. Besides, these are the things that guys are likely to talk about with other guys, right?
Rudius thought that Ellenlace probably gave him the sort of presents every single day. Still, it wasn't such a hassle to ask subtle questions. He could help someone out for a change. All right. But don't expect much. It's not as if Cliff and I are that close.
Okay, I'm expecting great things.
What did it say, Rudius thought? Yeah, this is technically would be probably right at the point that he got the two of them together. Yeah, Cliff probably really likes Rudius or respects Rudius for helping him out, basically confront the one that he loves. But Rudius doesn't feel like they're like attached or anything. If anything, he probably feels like Cliff hates him. After talking to her, he paid Cliff a visit. As usual, Cliff had himself set up in the front of the classroom and was studying alone. Not everyone could do that, buckling down that hard, while the other students had fun and lazed about. You had to admire it. Still, Rudius wondered how to talk to him. He went over to stand opposite of his desk and laid his hand on the surface.
Oh, it's you, Rudius.
Cliff looked a little miffed to have his studies interrupted, but then he saw Rudius. His expression softened.
This is unusual. What's the matter?
Rudius would go so far to say that he respected Cliff where women were concerned, but they didn't make a lot of small talk. He decided to get straight to the point. Actually, Cliff, I wanted to Q&A with you. I wanted to ask you something. Cliff looked a little taken back. To ask me? Huh?
Oh yes, of course. I suppose even you have things you don't understand, eh? No, nothing to be ashamed of. What's giving you trouble? I assume that you've got your textbook?
Cliff fidgeted as he spoke. But what Rudius wanted to know wasn't from class, but it wasn't a bad place to start. First, they would study together. Then Rudius would bring the conversation around to recent happenings. By happy coincidence, Rudius was carrying his healing magic textbook and everything. Yeah, I can see this being, like, again, a thing where Cliff is like, oh, an opportunity to help Rudius. Again, to repay him. He helped me out so much with this. Oh, and he's not perfect. I can help him with something. Yay. Okay, well, it's about incantation for advanced healing magic.
Incantations? Why are you asking about that when you could do silent casting?
I just can't get the hang of healing magic. I can't cast it without incantations.
Huh? You don't say? To think that you have a weak point. But I suppose it really isn't a weak point. Anyways, which part in particular do you not understand?
That's always been the funniest thing that we've still not gotten into why he can't do healing silent casting. And again, he made his assumptions there, but it seemed odd that Sylphie could pull it off and he couldn't. He thought it was about science. He thought it was literally about science. But then Sylphie was able to do healing and she doesn't understand biology. How was she able to pull it off and he wasn't? Rudius ended up having Cliff help with his studies. Cliff wasn't a great teacher. He used a lot of jargon and kept talking about difficult concepts, while assuming Rudius knew what he meant. A beginner would have been totally lost. But then, other teachers couldn't help if they paled in comparison to the great god Roxy. We gotta get a Roxy prop in there somewhere. Well, perhaps because Rudius knew a thing or two about magic as well, what he said made sense. Maybe it was thanks to the depths of Cliff's knowledge. So wait, the reason that advanced healing spells have long incantations? That's right, the scope of what could be healed expanded. But with it, the scope of what could not be healed did the same. Interesting. The scope of what could be healed expanded. They advanced the healing spells so that they can heal more things. But with it, the scope of what could not be healed did the same. What? Okay. I'm like, interesting. Reread it. No, wait, that doesn't make any sense. What? It becomes possible to heal too much. And so, to prevent that, the incantation gets longer. At the same time, control becomes more difficult. That's right. It becomes possible to heal too much. And so, to prevent that, the incantations get longer. I mean, I guess this is the concept of technically too much medicine is poison. I'm guessing that's what they're kind of talking about here. You can technically heal the tissue too much that you could end up harming it. You're putting too much mana into it or whatever. I mean, specifically to healing, I can see it being mana. You can technically pour too much mana into a point that you have to touch to heal, and you can cause damage to the tissue. Again, similar to the idea that technically too much medicine, too much different kind of treatment can technically harm the tissue. So you can heal too much. So to prevent that, the incantations get longer. And I understand the idea that it being longer and more complicated, it's going to be more difficult to control. But in order to prevent healing too much, the incantation gets longer. And I would imagine that's probably getting into the idea of sort of boundaries that the incantation would have to be placed upon it.
I don't know if I should be reading too much in this, but any bit to get into magic and how it works is always interesting to me. Of course, above Saint Tier discipline becomes still more sophisticated and subdivided. Thus, the incantations become absurdly long too. I get it now. Wow, thank you. Rudius was set for his next test now. Not that he cared that much about test scores, but still, Cliff really was something. He probably knew more than the teachers, and Rudius learned a lot. Next time he didn't understand something to do with healing magic, it was Cliff he'd be calling to. So cool. So cool. What an interesting chapter. Oh, yeah, that's right. Several days later, and it slipped Rudius's mind to ask what Cliff liked. Eloise came after him, and he ended up having to pay Cliff another visit. But that's a story for another time. I knew by the time that it was getting into like really explaining the magic, I'm like, he's gonna forget. He's gonna forget. Short story, Rudius can't learn silent healing casting. Following that whole question mark, we're gonna go right into it. Unfortunately, this feels like almost the exact same bit that we had back before Rudius left for the Beggar Continent. They literally, I feel like they had this exact same scene in that volume. It was a little after Sylphie and Rudius got married. After they ate, they went to the living room and started smooching like they always did. No, that's not right. They practiced magic. I told you, Rudy. With silent healing casting, it's like you're knitting together the flesh inside the target's body. This whole world had all sorts of entertainment. Board games, card games, theater. Though not after sundown, but there was bards at taverns. But since way back, when Sylphie and Rudius were together, they always did magic practice. During the laid-back hours after dinner, rather than playing games or chatting, they just naturally wound up teaching each other magic. At the moment, Rudius was teaching Disturb Magic, and she was teaching silent casting. Now, going back here, again, going back to my statement earlier, is it's curious that they've never really got into like specifics of why he hasn't been able to do silent casting with healing. It's at least showing what seems to be in Sylphie's mind. With Rudius, again, all you can think about is the fact that this came so naturally, and I did it. Maybe it's because of science. But I can't do this, maybe because I just don't understand how to heal somebody. That doesn't seem right, because you would think that he would at least have gone to some sort of biology class or something like that and understand how, like, tissues work and how it comes together. Like, you went to classes and understand how clouds are filled with energy. Did you not have a class where you learned about biology and how wounds work? She's at least talking about, from her mindset, what she does. With silent healing casting, it's like you're knitting together the flesh inside the target's body. She's almost talking like you're performing stitches, like you're doing a stitching for somebody. You're stitching the wound together, and it's pulling it together. So is she just envisioning it? It's the question mark. Okay, I'll give you a demonstration. You can only use healing magic on someone who was injured. So Rudius made a small cut on his finger and held it out to her. Sylphie wrapped her hands around his, then closed her eyes. No sooner did he feel a faint warmth in his hand, and the cut was gone. Well, you're amazing. He still got flustered whenever Sylphie squeezed his hand. He was pure heart, you see. I don't know how you're going to learn. Like, here, let me see your cut finger. There, you see it? No, because you wrapped your hands around it. I couldn't see it. Say the flattery. You'll be able to do it as soon as you get the knack of it. Now, you try it. Sylphie made a small cut on her pinky finger with a knife. Beads of blood rose from it. A cut on her beautiful hand. Rudius wanted to heal it quickly. He wrapped his hands around hers. Lately, he got pretty smooth when it came to taking her hand. In his previous life, he never would have taken a girl's hand like this. Sylphie's hand, though, so slender, but still soft and cool to touch. Her hand felt nice. He wanted to hold it forever. Rudy? Crap, he had to concentrate. He let the mana flow from his hand, imagining flesh knitting together. Okay, so he's at least doing that. He's at least doing that part, because I was like getting frustrated by the fact that like, okay, she's cutting herself so you can figure it out. She's showing you how to do it. Focus, Rudius. Stop thinking about the hands. Do the work. So he's at least doing that. He's imagining flesh knitting together. He's flowing mana as well. It's just not working. His eyes met Sylphie's. She was staring right at him. Her cheeks were a little pink. Maybe it was because she was holding his hand. Definitely not. It could be because of the fire that was burning a little hot. He had to concentrate. Truth be told, Rudius didn't know what he was doing. Offensive magic came relatively easy when he tried it, but he couldn't get the feeling of healing magic at all. No good? Yeah, seems so. After concentrating for a while, he looked and saw her finger stop bleeding. There was still the mark where the cut had been. What next, Rudy? Do you want to try again? Yeah. There was always value in repeating practice. That being said, it was no good to have her have to cut her beautiful hands more just to practice. He could use his own hands, but he wanted an excuse to hold Sylphie's hand. They were married and they didn't need excuses to hold hands, but there were subtle differences between how Sylphie reacted when he held her hand with or without an excuse. Rudius, focus. He can't focus. He can't focus. Rudy? My hand. If you don't let it go, we can't practice. Oh ho, your hand is so cool, my dear. Won't you allow me to warm it with mine? She went bright red at his attempt to be cheesy. She was so cute. He couldn't leave off here for the day. Get in a good mood, then into bed. But no, he had to practice. If he lost his hard-working attitude, Sylphie may cast him aside. Yeah, we're going back there where he was already feeling like she could leave at any moment, which I don't think he really ever lost until... I would guess that it would be after Ariel. I think it was after Ariel got the throne. I think that was finally the moment where Rudius stopped thinking that Sylphie would leave him at any time. And yes, technically, this is where he felt like he wasn't good enough for her. And then it came to the diary, was the fear of, but it happened in the diary and it could happen here. But yeah, it didn't take until like after Ariel hit the throne and Sylphie said that she wanted to be the mom of the house that finally, I think he stopped thinking about that. If he lost his hardworking attitude, Sylphie might cast him aside. And so, he let go of her hand. Sylphie let out a giggle, like she couldn't hold it in anymore. What? Nothing. It's just something about me teaching you magic. It's sort of emotional. I mean, when we were little, it was always you teaching me, you know? Yeah, takes me back. You don't mind, do you, Rudy? Me teaching you? Of course not. If anything, I love it. You do? Uh-huh. It really did take him back. Back when they lived in Buena, Sylphie had been small and timid and so cute that you could barely tell her apart from the boys. Well, it turned out it was only Rudius who couldn't tell. A lot has changed since back then. It has, but there's something that hasn't changed, Rudy. Huh? The way I feel about you. That did it. Practice was over for the day. He had to show her his perviness hadn't changed since back then either. Wasting no time, he swept her up on his arms and headed into the bedroom. Like I said, this chapter felt like it was like almost word for word back there. I guess that scene was specifically getting into disturbed magic. Maybe they didn't specifically talk about... I know that they were teaching each other this, for sure. Back when they got married, they were living together. They spent time together teaching disturbed magic and silent casting. So maybe back then it was specifically they were doing disturbed magic and this time it's doing healing magic. I don't know. Short story, Rudius and the many-storied sandcastle. Desert stretched out as far as the eye could see, and the sky above. The stars did the same. There was a campfire, near which many people lay sleeping, but two were sitting up, a man and a woman. They were on watch for the night. The woman named Carmelita. Oh my gosh, Carmelita. We're going back to Carmelita. She was a desert warrior with a second name, Bone Crusher. Glaring over the fire at the man, she fretted. Many of the sand warriors were quiet types, but they had a saying, a silent night summons evil. If you stay quiet all through the night's watch, you might find that before you knew it, your comrade had been replaced by something else. To prevent that, you had to talk about something. Interesting. I don't think they ever implied a creature or monster that would probably influence lore of Begret Continent that was like that. But they did technically imply that there was sort of a movement of monsters like the succubuses and whatnot in that lower region there. Carmelita wasn't much of a talker. And on top of that, she was talking to Rudius, the magician she hated. I was going to pretty much assume it's probably after that whole attack. A number of days had passed since they began their journey together, and they had already exhausted all the standard conversation topics. Not that she even particularly wanted to talk to him in the first place. There was a situation that was troubling Carmelita. With another sand warrior, she could have gotten through it with word games or the like, but not with the magician. That was a given. But then Carmelita remembered something. The word games were no good with the magician, but he would know other ways to drive away evil. Okay, so it's not that she's mad at him for the situation with the bandits. You're a great sorcerer, aren't you? Well, I don't know about great. They say great sorcerers can build a castle in the night. Try it, magician. Dance for me. Do a trick. Do a trick. Boy, do a trick. If the great sorcerer showed that he was more powerful, none of the evil around them would come near. This demand of hers, based on the old sayings, put Rudius on the spot. Can't expect me to just... Oh. Rudius, looking indignant, began to shake his head, but then something seemed to occur to him. A light bulb switched on inside his head. All right, he said. I'll do it. With that, he softly laid his hand on the ground. Was he going to make a castle appear just like that? Carmelita stilled herself. But what Rudius made rise out of the ground was not a castle. It was cylindrical, like a giant cup. It was a bucket. Okay, the title's making sense now. The title's making sense now. I'm really curious where this is going to go. It's not the same sand concept here, Rudius. Beach sand needs a little additional something else, and yeah. Carmelita looked at him questioningly. Was this supposed to be a castle? Without a word, Rudius used magic to fill the bucket with water. Okay, there you go. Then he began to add sand. After putting in a certain amount of sand, he added water, mixed it a little, then added more sand. He went through this process a few more times. Then, when the bucket was full, he patted the top, then flipped over the bucket. What ritual was this? Bewildered, Carmelita watched the display, totally different from magic that she was used to, with a wary eye. A moment later, her eyes went wide. Rudius raised the bucket to reveal a perfectly cylindrical mass of earth. To think that this sandy earth could be so changed. In all of her years living in the desert, Carmelita had never seen such a thing. Rudius then used magic to make a sort of spatula, with which he began to carefully carve into the cylinder. Before Carmelita's eyes, he whittled the cylinder into oblong, then made castle walls, windows, watchtowers, and castle gates, and a central tower. Phew. Finished. A little under an hour had passed since Rudius began working. Before him stood a little castle. It was a castle of sand that looked like a strong breeze might blow it over at any moment, but a castle was a castle. Well, it's a castle, isn't it? If you have to carry water in a sleeve, just slap tape over the holes, said Rudius' smug grin. But Carmelita wasn't looking at his face. The sand she knew so well had, without question, transformed into a castle. She couldn't conceal her surprise at that fact. At the same time, she understood something. When she spoke of great sorcerers building castles, they meant something. They meant creating a shrine to drive away evil spirits. So long as they had the castle of sand, no evil would come near them at night. Amazing. I misjudged you. With a bucket and water, you could do it too, Carmelita. Shall I show you? No, I don't use magic. Better not. Bad things follow when a lawyer learned magic from a magician. Remembering a saying along those lines, Carmelita shook her head. It's not really magic, though, Rias muttered. He looked a little put out at Carmelita's response, but there was also a hint of a smile on his face at her praise for his creation. They gave no indication the two of them hit off at all. This feels like a nice little point between the two of them. I was kind of expecting it to be pre or post the whole incident with, losing the other guy, but this has got to be before it. And all indications before then was literally that she didn't want to have anything to do with him. I mean, they had a conversation a little bit, and it seemed like she opened up about, sort of what was her pride, and that was what she was as a tribeswoman. This was the expectation of them, the female warriors, and they took a lot of pride in it. We bear their children sometimes, and we take them to the tribe, and the tribe raises the children, and then sends them off to be warriors again. And it was something that she was perfectly fine with. But it wasn't until, losing the other guy, and suddenly she hated him. But that's funny. That's kind of funny. And I kind of wish that we got sort of why Rudius came to that conclusion, because she's like, make a castle. And yeah, why wouldn't he just go earth magic and raise up something that looks like a fort? He purposely goes out of his way to make a sand castle with water. and is legit, from her perspective, yeah, I guess that's technically making that. Maybe this is what the mages are supposed to do. I'm going to do one more, but it's not formatted, so it's going to be, I think, in Reese's perspective. Short story, Spoiling Dinner. It was a few days after we rescued Roxy, and we were planning on exploring the labyrinth the next day. On that day, I went to the market with Paul. He didn't have anything to buy, but we would be down in the labyrinth for a good number of days. For more than a month, we wouldn't know sunlight. That stressed a person out. It was important that we took it as easy as possible while we could. And so, Paul saying, come with me for a little bit. He brought me here. Me, I would have liked to spend the day reading with Roxy. Just like the other day. But such is life, eh? I want to sit down with Roxy again and talk. Paul probably wanted to spend some quality time with his son that he hadn't seen in ages. As a good son, I had no choice but to go with him. This is literally last time spent with Paul, separate from the labyrinth and everything. I mean, they probably had another break between labyrinth, and I'm not sure. No, because I think after they saved Roxy, did they get straight down there? I don't remember. Whoa, see that, Rudy? Luciano's steel sword for only 500 cinchas. Wow, is that cheap? You paid 10 times much of that. The central continent. Does it have a good edge or something? Never used one, so I don't know. It seemed Luciano steel was a common material in these parts. When I really tried to remember, I had a feeling that the desert warriors I had traveled with these parts with had used a weapon made from this steel. But then, I didn't have the skill to identify metal by sight, so chances were I was imagining things. Huh? Just then, something stirred his nasal passages. What's up? Just now, did you smell something good? Paul looked around us, then his eyes locked in on a female adventurer who had passed him. Ah, he said. You listen to me, Rudy. When a girl smells good, it's usually perfume. Not that. Boy, let me tell you. Are you for real? Also, Sylphie and Roxy didn't need perfume to smell good, all right? Okay, Sylphie might be putting something on, but the point is, I wasn't talking about that. Huh. Something smells really tasty. Yes, that. Indeed, an indescribably fragrant smell was wafting our way. Why are they grilling? Let's go have a look. Keeping it cool, Paul and I set off in pursuit of the smell. We arrived at a street stall. It was a special sort of stall, one I'd never seen before. That wasn't to say the vendor was playing a flute while sending out clouds of delicious aroma of soy sauce. Rather, the first thing that caught our eye was a big tablet. Wait, maybe tablet wasn't the right word, but in any case, it was a massive stone plate. Was it gonna be like a hibachi grill or something? They're gonna have a hibachi grill? It was being heated by the scorching sun, and the vendor was grilling something on it. Yeah, it's a hibachi. Sweat pouring off him. I'd never seen anything like what he was grilling either. They looked like brown lumps. They were made from a paste, like grounded up wheat or beans or something. The vendor brushed them with oil, sprinkled on some spices, then grilled them. They didn't look that appetizing, but there was that fragrant smell and that mouth-watering sizzle. Hey, Rudy, what do you say we try a bit? There was a sign next to the plate that said 2 sencha for 1. That wasn't that expensive, but Lily and the others are going to have food ready for us when we get back. Seeing that you're all going out to the labyrinth tomorrow, she'd say, I'll cook up a storm. She was sure to make a lot too, and by the looks of things, this stall's portion was pretty substantial. One of these looked like enough for 2 people. This shop did things in supersized. I knew just one would be enough to fill me up. If we ate here, we wouldn't be able to finish the food that Lilia and the others were so thoughtfully preparing. Yeah, that's kind of sweet. I don't think they ever implied the idea that Lilia... I mean, you would assume that Lilia was doing a lot of the cooking back at the inn. But I mean, they could have been having the inn serving the food. She working hard outside the labyrinth. Come to think of it, if you don't try one now, you might never get the chance. That's true. Even though I journeyed from the Demon Continent to the Central Continent, I'd never had food like this before. It'd only been sold in these parts, or else it was this guy's original recipe. What if we went halves? I considered this for a long moment. No, it won't work. It'll be fine. Look, so long as we finish our dinner, no one will have to be the wiser. You're a man. You can stuff in a little extra, can't you? Yeah, in my past life, I was the type to shovel down enough for 2 or 3 people. But now I was trying to maintain my figure, you know. I exercised and everything. Well, you don't have to have any. Ah, what a shame. I'm betting they're delicious. It seemed Paul was going to eat one. I wanted to. The aroma and the sound were both calling out, I am delicious to me. And yet, gah, in the end, I was no match for my appetite and curiosity. Paul and I wound up facing hell at dinner that night. But that was a story for another time. That was cute. That was a cute short one. Again, like I said, they're getting shorter and shorter. I'm gonna finish one more. They're like so freaking quick. Short story compliments to the genius maid. At Paul's funeral, everyone brought something that carried a memory of him to the feast. Aisha brought a soup of stewed potatoes and beans. I didn't know my dad that well, but when we were in Millis, he was so happy when I made this for him. Aisha began a story from not long after she and Paul were reunited. After the incident in Sharon Kingdom, Aisha went with Lilia to the holy country of Millis. They were protected by the Sharon Knights, and so their party arrived safely in Millis, where they met up with Paul. He was happy to see them safe. After that, Paul, Lilia, Norn, and Aisha's life together in Millis began. Paul went on searching for residents of Fatoa, as he had been, and Lilia helped them. Aisha and Norn began going to school in Millis together. Their life together would be over in a vanishingly short period of time, but for Aisha, it did not hold any fond memories. Yeah, thanks to Grandma. Thanks to Grandma. And again, I'm kind of surprised that Paul allowed her to go there. He would have known Zenith's experience with her. Maybe it was more of a fact that, I mean, it's better there than sitting here in the bar or with the band. Paul was so busy every day that he hadn't any time for Aisha, but she did have memories of him. It happened at lunchtime on just another ordinary day. True. I don't think it really gave very little indication that she really even cared about him. Like, even when they were talking about going to the north, Aisha was excited to go see Rudius. It didn't seem like she was at all attached staying there. But again, that was sort of indicating that she just wanted to get away from Mom. It was like she wanted to get away from mom, and she found Rudius to be a genius and wanted to be at his side. She just wanted to get away from there. But she did have one memory of him. It happened at lunchtime on just another ordinary day. That day, Lilia was out of the house. She had gone to deliver some papers to the other side of Milshin to help the search party with their work. Norn had gotten poor marks on her tests, so she was at school taking a remedial class. Aisha, who had excellent grades, was at home, and in a rare event, Paul too had some spare time and had come home before lunch. This, however, was when the trouble occurred. Aisha finished cleaning the room that she was in, then came out to find Paul in the kitchen, groaning. He had potatoes, beans, meat, and vegetables laid out in front of him. Master, what's wrong?
God, I hate that stuff so much. I hate it. 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 I hate it.
Don't call your father master. God. And he doesn't correct it. Well, it's lunchtime, right, Aisha? Yes. You're hungry, right? Yes. Exactly. Exactly. There you go. He usually had lunch at the tavern where the search party was based. As such, Lilia had gone out without preparing anything for him, and as a result, Paul, who thought that he could eat at home, had come home to find nothing for lunch. Lorna had taken a lunchbox, by the way. Don't worry, Aisha. I'll make something for us right now. All right. Aisha decided to keep watch on him. Right. What's first again? You cut the ingredients, or do you light the stove first? Rats. Where are the pots? Paul's cooking skills were highly doubtful. He stared down the ingredients, the kitchen knife in his hand hovering uncertainly. Paul had spent some time as a sole adventurer, so he could manage something a bit like cooking. But he couldn't go feeding typical male cooking to his daughter. You know what? How about we eat out? Well, Aisha, anything you want? Just a moment, master. Eat it. Eat it. Eat it. Eat it. Huh? Oh. When Paul gave up and tried to suggest going out, Aisha pushed him out of the way at the kitchen bench. Then she took the spare knife out of the cupboard and rolled up her sleeves. Whoa, whoa, whoa. That's dangerous. Paul was alarmed. A small child had suddenly pulled out a knife. It's fine. Watch me, please. What do you... Oh. When Aisha started cooking, Paul's protest stopped. He stared in a slack-jaw amazement as Aisha, with practiced hands, took out a pot, filled it with water, turned on the stove, chopped up the ingredients, and tossed them in the pot. At the same time, she put the bread that sat on the edge of the bench into the basket, tore up some vegetables to arrange them in a bowl, then carried it all to the table. 10 minutes or so later, Paul had soup, salad, and bread in front of him. It was a meal that compared favorably to what Lilia usually made him. Here you are, master. To Aisha, however, it was a simple food and nothing special. Soup, thrown together from what she had had on hand, some vegetables she had torn up and called a salad, and bread that had already been baked. If anything, she had slacked off. I keep telling you. You call me Thank you so much, dude. It was starting to hurt. It was starting to hurt. Keep telling you. You call me father, not master. Oh, wow. In the middle of telling Aisha off for being too polite, he let out a sigh of amazement. Incredible. You're gonna cook like this at your age, huh, Aisha? What? Like this. You have no trouble finding someone when you're older. Paul said, then ruffled Aisha's hair. It was probably a shock for Paul to discover that Aisha could cook. After all, his other daughter, Norn, had never so much picked up a kitchen knife. I don't know. It surprised me when he complimented me like that. At the time, Aisha had not been used to... Came out of nowhere. I don't know. It surprised me when he complimented me just like that. At the time, Aisha had not been used to praise. Lilia was strict, and Zenith's relatives, the Latrias, were cold towards her. Even at school, as a child born out of wedlock, she rarely got any praise. As such, Paul's words had been a shock to Aisha too. I don't have any memories of Dad, but this one dish, it's special. She finished. Her mind still back on that day. It's out of nowhere. We're finishing this Mushoku Monday, and that just came out of nowhere. Again, these last two chapters, I didn't do any formatting or pre-editing or beforehand. I was not ready for that one. I've always felt, again, I've said it before, I'll say it a million times, Aisha and Lilia's story is easily one of the greatest stories of Mushoku Tensei. Like, I absolutely adore those two characters. And Aisha is such an incredibly interesting character study. And the idea of a character, mostly for the most part, was the aspect of basically being groomed. She was groomed by her mother. And it was horrible. But then she found happiness in the end, which is incredible. But one of the things that was, yes, in my mind for quite a long time was the aspect that Aisha herself never really truly had any sort of bonds with her mother and her father. With her mother, it was just strictly she was my master telling me what to do. Do this, clean this, keep wiping, clean this, scrub this, do this, clean this. You have to do this for Rudius. You have to be my salvation and my redemption for what I did wrong. But eventually, around volume 12, you had that moment where it seemed like finally she embraced her mom. Finally embraced her mom. And waterworks come out of my face. Her finally hugging her mother after Norm was like, you can do it. It's fine. Go ahead. You can be happy right now. Don't mind us. Be happy. That's your mom. Go. But when it came to Paul, it was like, yeah, what relationship? Because when they were really young, they specifically said he tried to get Aisha involved with them. And what did Lilia say? No, I'm raising her. This is what she needs to do. Paul, no, she's not playing with you. She has to do this. I have to prepare her. Then the displacement incident happens. She's separated from her father. And it isn't until Lilia and her arrive back in Millis with him that they finally have some sort of connection again. But the question was, how much? The assumption was that she was with the Latrias the whole time and never got to see Paul. And then finally they travel for a little bit to go to the West Coast, and then boom, she goes off with, Roger to go see Rudius. I just assumed she never really had any connection with him at all. Like pretty much zero. Most of the memories back in Buena Village, if she did interact with him, probably forgot at this point. I think she even mentioned at some point she forgot most of those memories. Or maybe that was Norn. That may have been Norn. One of the two of them, Norn or Aisha, mentioned the idea they don't just really remember much at all about Sylvie. I think it was Norn specifically, because I think it was around the time that she was closing herself up. Because I think with Aisha specifically, she did a lot of training with Sylvie specifically with Lilia. So I think she had some memories back there. But either way, to see that there was at least one memory, and it's a memory that obviously didn't hold her together too much, as we seen when Rudius was making the decision of what to do with Norn about going to school or whatever. It seemingly did not stick with her very long, because even right there was a significant amount of insecurity that Aisha had about, all the stuff that happened in Millis. Everybody treated me as the redheaded stepchild. I'm a stain of the family. But either way, it's still heartwarming to know that there was a good, positive memory back here, even though she's like, oh, it's just soup. And he said this one thing. And in the midst of all these horrible people around me, and nobody giving me any sort of credit, no one ever said positive things around me, nobody ever praised me, I had this one moment where I finally ran into Paul, my father, and he praised me for what I did. Even though it was just soup. Even point out the fact that it was lacking. It was her slacking. He praised it. The child born out of wedlock that rarely got any praise. Paul's words were a shock to Aisha. Ugh. Again, I don't know where it just punched me. It just punched me. I hate that we get all these sad stories about Paul after he's dead. Deliver Fujin cooking on Paul's story after he's dead. Anyways. That was a good last chapter for this Mushoku Monday. I'm kind of glad that I pushed through those last two chapters. It's been a really bad recording today. I'm so off my game, so it's probably gonna be a pain in the butt to edit this week. But hopefully things will start calming down for this season's craziness. But anyways, that's it for this Mushoku Monday. I hope you guys enjoyed this Mushoku Monday. As always, I'm glad that I could end this on a sob note. Hopefully you guys are as sob-filled eyes as I am with that little gut punch at the end there.
But I greatly appreciate you guys' support. Hope you guys enjoy this Mushoku Monday as always. I appreciate you guys' kind words, hitting the like button. Appreciate you hitting the like button. Hit the like button if you hadn't hit the like button already. But I greatly, greatly appreciate the sports channel monetarily, the Patreon, tips, links, super thanks, memberships, all that stuff. It means a great, 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 great deal to me. But until the next Mushoku Monday, y'all take care. Happy Mushoku Mondays, everybody. Happy Mushoku Mondays, everybody. I'm going to lose track at some point, but I greatly appreciate you guys dropping by for the premiere hate chat. Hope you guys doing help. Happy Mushoku Mondays, everybody. Welcome back to yet another Trek the Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation novel series. We are on a journey. I almost said volume. Happy Mushoku Mondays, everybody. Welcome back to yet another Trek the Mushoku Tensei. It was true. They assumed no. It was true. They assumed no. They assumed. They seemed too non. It was true. They seemed too non-uniform for a war room. It was true. They seemed too non-uniform for war room. War room.